She saw the salary, $350,000 a year for a brand new doctor, and sold her soul on the spot. 6 weeks later, she's begging to give the money back, but the hospital won't let her leave. I should have known something was wrong the moment I saw the salary. $350,000 a year for a small-town hospital in the middle of nowhere, Virginia. Fresh out of my residency with student loans that could fund a small country, I didn't ask questions. I should have. God, I should have. My name is Ava Chen, and 6 weeks ago I made a deal with the devil. I just didn't know he wore Tom Ford suits and had a smile that could make you forget your own name. The day I arrived in Hemlock Hills, the fog was so thick I almost drove past the hospital entirely. It materialized out of the gray like something from a fever dream, all glass and steel and completely out of place among the rotting colonial buildings that made up the rest of the town. Hemlock Memorial Hospital, 5 stories of cutting-edge medical facility where there should have been a rundown county clinic held together with duct tape and prayers. I pulled into the underground parking garage, my beat-up Honda looking pathetic next to the rows of Mercedes and Teslas. The fluorescent lights flickered, the only thing about this place that seemed normal, and I grabbed my bag from the passenger seat. The elevator ride to the top floor was glass-walled, and I watched the levels descend below me. 4 floors of visible hospital. Standard stuff: emergency department, surgical suites, patient rooms. But as the elevator climbed, I could have sworn I saw a 6th level, below the parking garage. Just a flash of harsh white light and steel doors before we rose too high to see. I blinked. Must have been my imagination. The 5th floor was executive offices, plush carpets, original art on the walls, not prints, originals. The kind of luxury that made my discount scrubs feel like sandpaper against my skin. "Dr. Chen?" I turned. He stood in the doorway of the corner office, backlit by floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Hemlock fog-shrouded town. Tall, maybe 6'3", dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on a magazine cover, not in a hospital administrator's office. Dr. Elias Crane, my new boss. "Welcome to Hemlock Memorial." His voice was smooth. Too smooth, like aged whiskey that burned going down. "I trust your drive was uneventful?" I nodded, suddenly aware of how disheveled I looked after 8 hours on the road. The fog was pretty intense. "It always is here." He smiled, and something about it made my stomach tighten. Not in a bad way. That was the problem. This town has a way of keeping its secrets hidden. He gestured for me to enter his office, and I did, trying not to gawk at the obscene wealth on display. A desk that probably cost more than my car, leather chairs that looked like butter, a bar cart in the corner stocked with bottles I couldn't pronounce. "Please, sit." I sat. He moved around his desk with the kind of grace that seemed almost practiced, like he'd choreographed every movement. When he settled into his chair, those pale gray eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. "Your credentials are impressive, Dr. Chen. Top of your class at Johns Hopkins, glowing recommendations from your attending physicians, a particular talent for emergency medicine and trauma surgery." He opened a file on his desk. My file. "Though I notice you left your last position rather suddenly." My throat went dry. "There was an incident," I said carefully. "A patient died during what should have been a routine surgery. The family sued, the hospital settled, but my reputation was destroyed. A 28-year-old woman, elective cosmetic procedure, severe allergic reaction to anesthesia that no one could have predicted." Elias recited the facts without looking at the file, like he'd memorized them. "You did everything right. The lawsuit was frivolous, but it ended your career at one of the country's most prestigious hospitals." "Yes." "That must have been difficult for you." I met his eyes. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Something flickered across his face. Satisfaction, maybe. like I'd passed some kind of test. "Well," he said, closing the file, "Hemlock Memorial believes in second chances. We're a small facility, but we serve a very specific clientele. Wealthy individuals who value their privacy above all else, celebrities, politicians, CEOs who need medical care without the publicity." That made sense, sort of, explained the luxury at least. "Your role here will be unique," Elias continued. "You'll oversee our specialized care unit, patients with complex, often experimental treatment needs. It will require absolute discretion and a willingness to push the boundaries of conventional medicine." The way he said it sent a chill down my spine. What kind of experimental treatments? Cutting-edge pharmaceuticals, gene therapy, regenerative medicine? He leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "Nothing illegal, I assure you, but not everything we do here has FDA approval yet. Our patients are willing to take those risks for the potential rewards." I should have walked out right then. Every instinct I had screamed that this was wrong. But I thought about my student loans, my ruined reputation, the fact that no other hospital would touch me with a 10-foot pole. "I understand," I said. Elias smiled again, and this time it reached his eyes. "Excellent. I had a feeling you were the right fit for Hemlock Memorial. Now let me show you to your quarters. You'll be living on site during your probationary period. It's easier that way, given our sometimes unpredictable patient needs." Living on site. Great. As if this place wasn't already feeling like a prison. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket, and I followed him out of the office. We took the elevator down to the 3rd floor, which was apparently residential, small apartments for doctors and nurses who worked overnight shifts or extended rotations. Mine was at the end of a long hallway, door unmarked except for a number, 312. He used a key card to unlock it, then handed me the card. "This will grant you access to all patient floors and your apartment. If you need access to other areas, you'll need to request special clearance." I stepped inside. The apartment was small but well appointed. Bedroom, bathroom, kitchenette, a window that looked out over the parking garage. Not the town. Interesting. "Your first shift starts tomorrow at 6 a.m., Elias said from the doorway. "I'll introduce you to the team and give you a tour of the specialized care unit. Get some rest, Dr. Chen. You're going to need it." He left before I could respond, the door clicking shut behind him. I stood in the middle of my new apartment, surrounded by boxes I'd shipped ahead, and felt the weight of my decision settle over me like a shroud. Something was very wrong with this place. But I needed this job. I needed to prove I wasn't the failure everyone thought I was. So I unpacked, made the bed, tried not to think about the way Elias Crane had looked at me, like I was something he'd been waiting for. That night I barely slept. The hospital was too quiet. No sounds of patients or nurses or the usual chaos of a medical facility. Just silence, broken occasionally by the hum of ventilation systems and the distant ping of an elevator. At 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went to the window. The parking garage below was empty, except for a single black SUV pulling in. I watched as 2 men in scrubs got out, went to the back, and opened the doors. They pulled out a gurney. On it was a body bag. I pressed my face against the glass, trying to see more, but they moved quickly, wheeling the gurney toward the elevators. Within seconds, they were gone. A body bag. At 3 in the morning? In a hospital that supposedly treated wealthy patients with privacy concerns? I stepped back from the window, my heart pounding. What the hell had I gotten myself into? 6 a.m. came too fast. I dressed in my nicest scrubs, pulled my hair into a neat ponytail, and tried to look like I hadn't spent the night spiraling into paranoia. The hallway outside my apartment was still eerily quiet as I made my way to the elevator. The button for the 5th floor glowed under my finger, but as the doors started to close, I saw it again. That unmarked button, the one with the keycard symbol. Before I could think better of it, I pressed it. Access denied. Of course. The elevator rose smoothly to the 5th floor, and the doors opened to reveal Elias waiting for me, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "Good morning, Dr. Chen." He offered me one of the cups. "I hope you slept well." I took the coffee because I needed it. "Well enough." "Liar," he said with amusement, not accusation. "This place takes some getting used to. The quiet can be unnerving for those accustomed to the chaos of a typical hospital." We walked together down the hallway, past the executive offices, to another elevator I hadn't noticed before. This one required a keycard. Elias swiped his, and the doors opened. "The specialized care unit is on the 2nd floor," he explained as we descended. "It's a closed unit, no visitors without explicit permission, no windows to the outside, complete privacy for our patients." The doors opened. I stepped into a nightmare dressed as a medical facility. The walls were white, sterile, but there was something wrong about the lighting, too harsh and clinical. The air smelled of antiseptic and something else, something metallic and sweet that made my stomach turn. There were rooms along both sides of the hallway, each with reinforced doors, small windows at eye level, but they were covered with privacy screens from the inside. "We have 12 patients currently," Elias said, leading me down the hall. "All of them are undergoing experimental treatments for various conditions. Your job is to monitor their progress, adjust medications as needed, and report any adverse reactions directly to me." "What kind of conditions?" "Genetic disorders, degenerative diseases. Some are terminal cases where conventional medicine has failed." He stopped at a door marked with the number 7. "This patient, for example, is suffering from a rare blood disorder. We're treating him with a synthesized compound derived from stem cells." He swiped his keycard and pushed open the door. The man inside was strapped to the bed, not with medical restraints, with actual steel cuffs bolted to the bed frame. He was young, maybe 30, and he looked like death, skin gray and waxy, eyes sunken. But when he saw us, he started thrashing, the cuffs rattling against metal. "Please," he gasped, "please, I can't take any more. Just let me die, please." I froze. Elias closed the door. "He's delusional," he said calmly, "a side effect of the treatment. He'll stabilize in a few days." "He's restrained." "For his own safety. Some of our patients experience violent episodes during treatment. We can't risk them harming themselves or the staff." I stared at the door, my mind racing. This doesn't feel right. Elias turned to me, and for the first time, I saw something cold in his eyes. "Dr. Chen, these patients came to us because they had no other options. They signed consent forms. They understand the risks. What we do here saves lives that would otherwise be lost. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it requires difficult choices. But you of all people should understand that medicine isn't always pretty." He was right. I hated that he was right. "I need you to trust me," Elias said, his voice softening. "I brought you here because I believe you have the strength to do what's necessary, to push past your fear and see the bigger picture. Can you do that, Ava?" The way he said my name made something flutter in my chest. I nodded. "Good," he smiled. "Let me introduce you to your team." The next hour was a blur of names and faces, nurses who looked at me with suspicion, orderlies who wouldn't meet my eyes, a pharmacist who seemed nervous just being near me. Everyone here was afraid of something. And then Elias took me to the last room at the end of the hall. "This patient is special," he said, his hand on the door handle. "He's been here longer than any of the others, 3 years. His treatment has been particularly challenging, but we're finally seeing progress." He opened the door. The room was bigger than the others, a suite almost. Bed, couch, small desk. And in the bed, heavily sedated but still conscious, was a young man who looked exactly like me. Same dark hair, same facial structure, same eyes. I stepped closer, my heart hammering in my chest. Who is he? Elias came to stand beside me, so close I could feel the heat of his body. "His name is Fin Chen, your brother." The world tilted. "I don't have a brother." "You were both adopted as infants, different families, different states. You never knew about each other." 3 years ago, Finn was diagnosed with a degenerative neurological condition, incurable by conventional standards. His adoptive parents brought him here as a last resort. I couldn't breathe. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because his treatment required absolute secrecy, and because, Ava, you're the key to saving him. I turned to Elias, and the expression on his face was something between triumph and hunger. What are you talking about? You share the same genetic markers, the same rare blood type, the same biological resistance to certain compounds. He moved closer, crowding my space. I've been treating Finn with experimental drugs, but his body keeps rejecting them. He needs a transfusion, not just blood, bone marrow, stem cells from a genetic match. From me, from you. I looked back at Finn, at his slack face and the tubes running into his arms. My brother, a brother I never knew existed, dying in a hospital basement while I lived my life completely unaware. The procedures would be invasive, painful, and there's no guarantee they'll work, but without them, Finn will die within 6 months. My hands were shaking. You brought me here for this, not because of my credentials, because I'm a match. I brought you here because you're brilliant, and you have nothing to lose. His voice dropped to a whisper, and because I knew you'd do the right thing. I wanted to scream, to run, to report this entire operation to whatever authority would listen, but I was looking at my brother, dying. What do you need from me? I asked. Elias smiled. If you're still listening, thank you. Hit subscribe. I'm going to need every set of eyes I can get for what's next. Part 2. The first procedure. The bone marrow extraction was scheduled for the following morning. I spent the night in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, trying to process the fact that I had a brother, a dying brother, a brother who'd been kept sedated in a basement hospital ward for 3 years while some billionaire doctor pumped him full of experimental drugs. And now that same doctor wanted to drill into my bones. I should have called someone, the police, the medical board, anyone. But who would believe me? I had no proof, no documentation, just my word against Elias Crane, a man who clearly had enough money and influence to make problems disappear. And there was Finn. God, Finn. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, my face, the same stubborn jawline our birth mother must have given us, the same slightly crooked nose. We were strangers, but we were connected by something deeper than memory. Blood. At 5 a.m., someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find a nurse I didn't recognize, young, blonde, with eyes that wouldn't quite meet mine. Dr. Crane asked me to escort you to the procedure room, she said. Her name tag read Sarah. I know the way. He insists. Her smile was apologetic but firm. I grabbed my badge and followed her to the elevator. She used her key card to access the second floor, and we descended in silence. When the doors opened, Elias was waiting. He'd traded his suit for scrubs, dark blue, perfectly fitted, making him look like he'd stepped out of some medical drama. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd just showered, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with antiseptic. Ava. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Ready? Do I have a choice? There's always a choice. He dismissed Sarah with a wave and took my elbow, guiding me down the hallway. You could walk away right now, leave Hemlock Memorial, leave your brother, leave all of this. But Finn dies. Finn dies, he confirmed, but you'd be free. We stopped outside a door marked Surgical Suite B. Through the small window, I could see an operating table surrounded by equipment I didn't recognize, machines that hummed and beeped, monitors displaying data I couldn't read from this distance. What exactly are you taking from me? I asked. Elias turned to face me, and suddenly we were very close, too close. I could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, the slight stubble along his jaw that suggested he'd been up all night. bone marrow from your hip, stem cells from your blood, tissue samples from your spine. He rattled off the list like he was reading a grocery list. The procedures will take approximately 6 hours. You'll be under general anesthesia. When you wake up, you'll be in significant pain, but we have excellent pain management protocols. And this will save him? It will give him a chance. He reached up, and for a moment I thought he was going to touch my face. Instead, he adjusted the collar of my scrub top. I need you to understand something, Ava. What we're doing here, what I'm doing here, it's not just about Finn. It's about advancing medicine beyond the constraints of ethics boards and FDA approval processes. It's about saving lives that would otherwise be lost to bureaucracy and fear. You sound like a supervillain. He laughed, actually laughed. Perhaps, but even villains can do good work. Before I could respond, he opened the door and guided me inside. The surgical suite was freezing. I started shivering immediately, and a nurse appeared with a heated blanket, draping it over my shoulders as she led me to the operating table. "We're going to take good care of you," she said. Her name tag read Martha. She looked like someone's grandmother. "Dr. Crane is the best there is." I lay down on the table and the anesthesiologist appeared. Male, middle-aged, with the bored expression of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Count backwards from 10, he said, fitting a mask over my face. I looked up and found Elias standing at the head of the table, looking down at me. His hand came to rest on my forehead, cool against my skin. "See you on the other side, Ava," he murmured. 10, 9, 8. The world went black. I woke up to agony. Every nerve in my body was on fire. My hip felt like someone had taken a blowtorch to it. My spine screamed with each breath. Even my blood hurt. "Shh, you're okay, you're okay." Elias, his voice came from somewhere to my right, calm and soothing. I tried to turn my head and immediately regretted it. Pain exploded behind my eyes, and I heard myself whimper. "Don't move yet. The anesthesia is still wearing off." His hand found my own, warm and solid. "You did beautifully. The extraction was successful. We've already begun Finn's transfusion." I forced my eyes open. The room was dim, just a single light above my bed. I was back in my apartment somehow, still in my surgical gown, hooked up to an IV drip and a morphine pump. Elias sat in a chair beside my bed, still in his scrubs, looking exhausted. "How long?" I rasped. 8 hours. There were complications. Your body didn't respond well to the spinal tap. We had to pause several times to stabilize you. 8 hours. Jesus. "Finn? Receiving your stem cells as we speak. His body is already showing positive responses. It's too early to know for certain, but I'm optimistic." I closed my eyes, trying to breathe through the pain. "Sleep," Elias said. "I'll check on you in a few hours." I tried to stay awake, to demand answers, but the morphine was too strong. I drifted. The next 3 days were a blur of pain, medication, and Elias. He was always there when I woke up, sometimes reading medical journals, sometimes working on his laptop, sometimes just sitting in silence, watching me with those unsettling gray eyes. He changed my IV bags, monitored my vitals, brought me food I couldn't eat and water I could barely swallow. "You have nurses for this," I said on day 2, when he appeared with fresh bandages for my hip. "I don't trust anyone else with you." He said it matter-of-factly, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "That's insane." "Perhaps, but you're far too valuable to leave in anyone else's care." "Valuable? To Finn, to me, to this hospital. You're special, Ava. I knew it the moment I read your file. The way you survived that lawsuit, the way you kept fighting even when everyone told you to give up. That kind of resilience is rare." I watched him work, his long fingers careful and precise. "You don't know me. I know you better than you think." He finished bandaging my hip and pulled my gown back down. I know you're brilliant and stubborn and so desperate to prove yourself that you'd walk into a trap if it meant getting a second chance at your career. That's what this is? A trap? He looked up at me and something in his expression shifted, softened. No, this is an opportunity, for both of us. For what? To do something extraordinary. Before I could respond, there was a knock on the door. Martha, the grandmother nurse, poked her head in.
Dr. Crane, we have a situation with the patient in room 4. Elias stood immediately, his professional mask sliding back into place. What kind of situation? He's seizing. We can't get it under control. He was moving toward the door before she finished speaking, but he paused at the threshold to look back at me. I'll be back soon. Don't go anywhere. Like I could barely sit up without passing out. They left, and I was alone. For the first time in 3 days, I was actually alone. I stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. Elias Crane was either the most dedicated doctor I'd ever met or completely insane, maybe both. He spoke about his work with the fervor of a religious convert, like he was doing God's work instead of conducting illegal medical experiments on desperate patients. And he looked at me like I was part of that work, like I was something he'd been waiting for. It should have terrified me. It did terrify me, but there was something else too, something I didn't want to acknowledge. Every time he touched me, even just to check my vitals, I felt it, a spark, a pull, something magnetic and wrong and completely undeniable. I was attracted to him, to my captor, to the man who'd manipulated me into this nightmare. What the hell was wrong with me? By day 4, I could walk. Barely. Every step felt like my hip was shattering, but I refused to stay in bed another minute. I used my IV pole as a crutch and made my way slowly out of my apartment and down the hallway. The 3rd floor was quiet, too quiet. I could hear my own breathing, the squeak of my IV pole wheels, nothing else. I made it to the elevator and pressed the button for the 2nd floor. Access denied. Right, I needed a key card for the specialized care unit, and mine was back in my apartment. I turned to go back and nearly ran into Elias. He caught me before I could fall, his hands on my waist, steadying me. You should be resting. I want to see Finn. Ava, I want to see my brother. I gave you my bone marrow, my stem cells, my spinal fluid. The least you can do is let me see if it worked. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Come on. He kept one hand on my elbow as we took the elevator down. My body was pressed against his side, and I could feel the solid warmth of him through his shirt. He smelled like coffee and that expensive cologne, and something underneath that was just him. The elevator doors opened, and we walked slowly down the hallway to Finn's room. Elias swiped his card and pushed open the door. Finn was awake. Actually awake, not sedated, sitting up in bed, looking at us with dark eyes that were so much like mine it was like looking in a mirror. Finn, Elias said, this is Dr. Ava Chen, your sister. Finn blinked, once, twice, then his face crumpled and he started to cry. I pulled away from Elias and moved to the bed as fast as my broken body would let me. When I reached him, Finn grabbed my hand, holding on like I was the only real thing in the world. I thought I was alone, he whispered. I thought I was completely alone. You're not, I said, tears streaming down my own face. You're not alone anymore. Behind us, Elias watched from the doorway, and when I glanced back at him, the expression on his face was something between satisfaction and possessiveness, like he'd orchestrated this moment, like we were both exactly where he wanted us. Part 3. The Truth About Room 4. I started spending every spare moment with Finn. It was easier than I expected, getting to know a brother I'd never met. We had the same sense of humor, the same way of tilting our heads when we were thinking. He liked terrible action movies and good coffee, hated olives but loved mushrooms, and had a laugh that made everyone around him smile. We were the same in all the ways that mattered, except he was dying, and I was the only thing keeping him alive. The transfusions continued every 3 days. Elias would call me down to the second floor, extract more blood, more plasma, more pieces of me to pump into Finn's failing body. Each time left me weaker, but each time Finn got a little stronger. It was working, and that should have made me happy. It did make me happy, but there was something else growing inside me, something darker. Suspicion. Because the more time I spent on the second floor, the more I realized how wrong everything was. The patients in the other rooms never got visitors, never got better. They just existed in this perpetual state of sedated half-life, hooked up to machines that beeped and whirred endlessly. And Room 4 was always locked, always dark, but sometimes, late at night when I couldn't sleep and wandered the halls, I'd hear sounds coming from inside, screaming, begging, the kind of sounds that made your blood run cold. I asked Elias about it once. "Room 4 is restricted," he said, not looking up from his paperwork, "even to you." Why? Because the patient inside is dangerous, violent. He's here for treatment, but he requires specialized containment. What kind of treatment? Elias looked at me finally, and his expression was unreadable. The kind that requires absolute discretion. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I'd tried to forget about Room 4, tried to focus on Finn, on my work with the other patients, on the strange routine I'd fallen into at Hemlock Memorial. But I couldn't stop thinking about those screams. Tonight, I was going to find out why. It was 2 a.m. and the hospital was as quiet as it ever got. I'd been planning this for days, waiting for the right moment. Elias was in surgery on the 4th floor, some emergency procedure that would keep him occupied for hours. Most of the night staff were gathered around the nurses' station on the 1st floor, distracted by someone's birthday cake. I had maybe 20 minutes, 30 if I was lucky. I slipped out of my apartment and made my way to the stairs. The elevator would ping and alert people to my movements, but the stairs were silent. I descended slowly, my hips still aching from the last extraction, and pushed open the door to the 2nd floor. The hallway was empty. I moved quickly to Room 4, my heart hammering against my ribs. The door was reinforced steel with a keycard reader, but I'd stolen Martha's card earlier that day, slipping it out of her pocket while she was helping me with Finn. I swiped the card. The light turned green. The door unlocked with a heavy thunk. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was dark, except for the glow of medical monitors. It took my eyes a moment to adjust, but when they did, I wished they hadn't. The patient was strapped to a bed in the center of the room. Not medical restraints, heavy leather straps across his chest, arms, and legs, the kind used for violent psychiatric patients. His head was immobilized by a metal frame bolted to the bed. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the tubes. There were dozens of them, running from his body to machines I didn't recognize, drawing blood, pumping in fluids, extracting something from his spine, his organs, his brain. He was being harvested. I stepped closer, bile rising in my throat, and that's when I saw his face. Young, maybe 25, handsome in a rugged way, with dark hair and a strong jaw. His eyes were open, staring at nothing, and I realized with horror that he was conscious, paralyzed but conscious, aware of everything being done to him. "Oh my God," I whispered. His eyes snapped at me, and I watched them fill with tears. I moved to the bed, my hands shaking as I reached for the straps. "I'm going to get you out of here. I'm going to—" "I wouldn't do that if I were you." I spun around. Elias stood in the doorway, still in his surgical scrubs, splattered with blood. His expression was calm, almost disappointed. "Step away from the patient, Ava." "What are you doing to him?" "My job." "Your job?" I was shouting now, hysteria creeping into my voice. "You're torturing him. You're harvesting his organs while he's still alive." "He's a donor, a very specific kind of donor." Elias stepped into the room, and I backed away until I hit the wall. "His genetic profile is unique. His cells regenerate at an accelerated rate. He's essentially immortal, which makes him incredibly valuable for research. He's a person." "He's a criminal.
A murderer, to be specific. He killed 3 people in a home invasion 5 years ago, got life in prison without parole. Elias moved closer, crowding me against the wall. His family sold him to me. They needed the money, and he was never getting out anyway. So now he serves a purpose. His suffering saves lives. I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. You bought a human being? You bought a resource. His hand came up to cup my face, and I flinched. Don't look at me like that, Ava. You've been using his cells for weeks. Those regenerative compounds in Finn's treatment, they come from room 4. Your brother is alive because of this man's sacrifice. The room tilted. No! Yes. His thumb stroked my cheekbone, almost tender. You're complicit in this. We all are. The difference is, I'm honest about it. I shoved him away and ran. Out of the room, down the hallway, up the stairs. I didn't stop until I was in my apartment with the door locked behind me. I collapsed against it, sliding down to the floor, my whole body shaking. Sin was alive because someone was being tortured. I was responsible for that torture. I had taken that man's cells, used them, benefited from his suffering. I was a monster. There was a knock at the door. Ava, open up. Elias, of course. Go away. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. There's everything to talk about. His voice was patient, infuriatingly calm. You're in shock right now. That's understandable. But once you've had time to process it, you'll realize that what we're doing here is necessary. I pressed my forehead against the door. It's not necessary. It's evil. It's survival. That man in room 4 would be rotting in a cell, contributing nothing to society. Instead, his cells are curing diseases, saving lives, including your brother's life. How is that evil? Because he didn't consent. His family consented. That's legally sufficient. It's not morally sufficient. Silence. Then quieter. No, it's not. I hadn't expected him to agree. I never claimed to be a good man, Ava. I've done terrible things in the name of progress. I've made choices that keep me awake at night. But I've also saved hundreds of lives, cured diseases that conventional medicine deemed incurable, advanced medical science by decades. He paused. The question isn't whether what I do is good or evil. The question is whether the lives saved justify the cost. And you think they do? I think the world isn't black and white. I think we all make compromises, and I think you've already made yours. He was right. God help me, he was right. I'd seen the specialized care unit. I'd felt the wrongness of this place, but I'd stayed because of Finn, because I needed this job, because I wanted to prove I wasn't a failure. I'd chosen to be complicit. What happens now? I asked. Now you have a choice. You can leave, walk away from Hemlock Memorial, from Finn, from me. I won't stop you. But Finn will die within weeks without your continued transfusions. Or you stay, you accept what this place is, what I am, and you help me do what needs to be done. You use your brilliant mind to advance our research. You save more lives than you could ever have in a conventional hospital. And in exchange? In exchange, I give you everything. Resources, freedom to experiment, a purpose. His voice dropped. And Finn lives. I closed my eyes, feeling tears slip down my cheeks. I need time to think. Take all the time you need, but his tone suggested I didn't actually have much time at all. I'll be in my office when you're ready to talk. His footsteps retreated down the hallway. I stayed on the floor for a long time, trying to find a version of myself that could walk away from this, that could condemn my brother to death and turn my back on the man who'd given me a second chance. But I couldn't find her. That version of me didn't exist anymore. So I stood up, washed my face, and made my way to the elevator. Elias's office was on the 5th floor, and the door was open. He sat at his desk, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring out at the fog-covered town below. He didn't turn when I entered, but I saw his shoulders relax slightly. "I'll stay," I said. "I know, but I have conditions." Now he turned, one eyebrow raised. "Oh?" "The man in room 4. I want to know his real story, not the version you told me, the truth." "Why?" "Because if I'm going to be complicit in his torture, I need to understand who he is." Elias considered this, then nodded. "Fair enough. His name is Marcus Webb, 27 years old. He was convicted of 3 murders, but the case was circumstantial. His defense attorney was a public defender who barely put up a fight. He's maintained his innocence for 5 years. My stomach dropped. So he might be innocent. He might, or he might be a very good liar. Elias took a sip of his whiskey. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Because it makes you feel better about using his cells if he's guilty? Because you can tell yourself he deserves it? I didn't answer. We all tell ourselves stories to justify what we do, Ava. The trick is knowing which stories are true and which are just comfortable lies. He stood and moved around the desk, coming to stand in front of me. We were close again, too close, and I could smell the whiskey on his breath. I have another condition, I said. Name it. I want to talk to him, to Marcus. Elias's eyes narrowed. Why? Because he's a person. Because if I'm going to use his body to save my brother, I need to look him in the eye and acknowledge what I'm doing. That's a terrible idea. Those are my terms. He stared at me for a long moment, something unreadable flickering across his face. Then he smiled, slow and dangerous. You're going to be trouble, aren't you? Probably. Good. He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering against my skin. My breath caught. We're so close I could feel the heat of his body. His eyes dropped to my lips, and for one insane moment I thought he was going to kiss me. Part of me wanted him to. That realization was more terrifying than anything else that had happened in this place. I stepped back. When can I see Marcus? Elias's smile didn't fade. Tomorrow, I'll arrange it. Thank you. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me at the door. If this story's hitting for you, drop a like and keep watching.
Ava? I looked back. You made the right choice. Staying. Did I? Yes, because now I can show you what we're really capable of. Together. The way he said that word, together, made something in my chest tighten. I left his office and made my way back to my apartment, my mind spinning. I'd crossed a line tonight, maybe several lines. There was no going back from this. I was trapped in Hemlock Memorial, bound by my brother's life and my own twisted fascination with the man who'd orchestrated this entire nightmare. And the worst part, I wasn't sure I wanted to escape anymore. Part 4. The Breaking Point. True to his word, Elias arranged for me to see Marcus the next day. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those tubes, that paralyzed face, those terrified eyes begging me for help I couldn't give. At 6 a.m., I gave up on sleep and took a shower so hot it left my skin red and raw. I needed to feel something other than the sick twist of guilt in my stomach. When I emerged from my apartment, Elias was waiting in the hallway. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His shirt was rumpled, tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled, but his eyes were as sharp as ever, watching me with that unsettling intensity. "Ready?" he asked. "No." "Good."
That means you still have a conscience." He started walking toward the elevator. "Come on." We descended to the second floor in silence. The tension between us was different now, heavier, like we'd crossed some invisible threshold and couldn't pretend anymore that this was just a professional relationship. Because it wasn't. It never had been. He'd orchestrated my entire life for the past 2 years, manipulating me into this position, and somehow I was still drawn to him, still felt that magnetic pull every time he was near. What did that say about me? The elevator doors opened, and we walked to room 4. Elias swiped his card, and the lock disengaged with that same heavy thunk. "A few ground rules," he said, before opening the door. "Don't touch any of the equipment, don't make promises you can't keep, and don't let him manipulate you. Marcus is charming when he wants to be. That's how he got close enough to his victims to kill them." "You said he might be innocent." "He said he maintained his innocence. That's not the same thing." He pushed open the door. 15 minutes. I'll be right outside." I stepped into the room. Marcus was still strapped to the bed, still surrounded by those horrible machines, but someone had adjusted his restraints so he could turn his head slightly. When he saw me, his eyes widened. "You came back," he said. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it in a long time. I moved closer, my legs shaking. "I'm Dr. Ava Chen. I know who you are. You're his new pet project. Welcome to hell, doctor." "I'm sorry." The words felt inadequate, pathetic. "I'm so sorry for what's being done to you." "Sorry doesn't stop the pain." He studied my face. "But you're not here to apologize. You're here to assuage your guilt, to look into my eyes and convince yourself that I deserve this." "No, I'm here because I need to know the truth. Did you kill those people?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Does it matter? Would it change anything if I said yes or no?" "It matters to me." "Why? Because if I'm guilty, you can keep using my body without feeling bad about it? That's not how morality works, doctor. Either what's he's doing to me is wrong or it isn't. My guilt or innocence doesn't change that fact." He was right. God, he was right. "Tell me anyway," I said. "Please." He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in his expression, a decision being made. "I didn't kill anyone," he said quietly. "I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. The real killer was my best friend, someone I trusted completely. When the police came, he blamed me, said I'd done it, and because he was white and from a good family, and I was neither of those things, everyone believed him. Do you know where he is now? Living his best life, probably. Last I heard, he's an accountant in Boston, married, 2 kids. Marcus's jaw clenched. Meanwhile, I've been here for 5 years having my insides slowly harvested. I felt sick. "Can you prove your innocence?" "I could if I could access the evidence. There was DNA at the scene that didn't match either of us, but my lawyer never pursued it, and now I'm here where no one will ever look for me." "I could look for you." The words were out before I could stop them. Marcus stared at me. "Why would you do that?" "Because what's being done to you is wrong. Whether you're guilty or innocent, this is wrong. And yet you're still going to use my cells to save your brother." "Yes, I am. I couldn't lie to him. I am. At least you're honest about it." He laughed again, that same bitter sound. "You know what the worst part is? It's not even the pain. It's knowing that I'm keeping people alive, that my suffering has purpose, because part of me wants that. Part of me wants to be useful even like this, and I hate myself for it." I understood that feeling better than I wanted to admit. "I'm going to help you. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to find a way to get you out of here. Don't make promises you can't keep, doctor. He told you that, didn't he? Don't make promises." Marcus's eyes were sad. Just use my cells to save your brother and try not to think about where they came from. That's the kindest thing you can do for both of us." The door opened. "Time's up," Elias said.
I looked back at Marcus one last time. I meant what I said. He just closed his eyes. Elias led me out of the room and down the hallway. We didn't speak until we reached the elevator. "Well?" he asked, as the doors closed. "Feel better?" "No." "Good. You shouldn't. That's the thing about moral compromises, Ava. They're supposed to hurt. The moment they stop hurting is the moment you've lost yourself completely. Is that what happened to you?" He didn't answer right away. When the elevator doors opened, he led me to his office and closed the door behind us. I was a different person once. Young, idealistic, believed in the sanctity of life and the Hippocratic Oath and all those pretty lies they teach you in medical school. He poured himself a drink, offered me one. I shook my head. Then my sister got sick. Rare genetic disorder, incurable. Watching her waste away, knowing I had all this knowledge and couldn't do anything to save her, it changed me. What happened to her? She died, slowly, painfully, while I sat there with my ethics and my principles and my useless conventional medicine. He took a long drink. After that, I decided ethics were a luxury I couldn't afford. If the FDA wouldn't approve experimental treatments, I'd do them anyway. If patients couldn't consent, I'd find people who could consent for them. If I had to become a monster to save lives, then that's what I'd become. And Marcus is one of dozens. This hospital has been running for 15 years, Ava. I've harvested organs, cells, tissue from prisoners, coma patients, terminal cases whose families couldn't afford care. I've saved hundreds of lives, cured diseases, advanced medicine in ways the world won't know about for decades. He turned to face me, and I'd do it all again. I should have been horrified. I was horrified, but I also understood, because if it was Finn in that bed, if I could save him by becoming a monster, wouldn't I do the same thing? I looked into Marcus's case, the evidence, the DNA. He's telling the truth. He's innocent. My heart stopped. What? The evidence was suppressed during trial. His lawyer was paid off by the real killer's family. Marcus Webb is an innocent man. Then let him go. I can't. Elias set down his glass. His cells are too valuable. Finn needs them. Dozens of other patients need them. One innocent man suffering versus hundreds of lives saved. It's not even a question. Yes, it is. It's the only question that matters. Is it? He moved toward me, and I backed away until I hit his desk. Because if I stop using Marcus's cells, Finn dies. Is that what you want? To sacrifice your brother for a stranger? That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Ava. That's the entire point. He was right in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You're a monster. You keep looking for a way to make this okay, a way to justify staying here, using Marcus, saving Finn, but there isn't one. You just have to decide what you can live with. I can't live with this. Yes, you can. You already are. His hand came up to my face, fingers tracing my jaw, and I should have pulled away, should have run, should have done anything except lean into his touch like I was starving for it. "You're a monster," I whispered. "I know, and so are you. That's why you're still here." Then he kissed me, and God help me, I kissed him back. It was wrong on every level. Morally, ethically, professionally. He was my boss, my captor, a man who tortured innocent people, a man who'd manipulated every aspect of my life, and I wanted him with an intensity that terrified me. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I melted into him like I'd been waiting my entire life for this moment. The kiss was desperate, violent, full of all the tension that had been building between us since the moment we met. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "This doesn't change anything," I said. "I know. I still think you're evil. I know. And I'm still going to help Marcus." Elias pulled back slightly, his eyes searching my face. "If you do that, Finn dies. Then I'll find another way. Another donor, another treatment. I grabbed his shirt, fisting the expensive fabric in my hands. I'm not like you. I won't sacrifice an innocent man. Even for your brother? Even for my brother. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. You really mean that? Yes. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Actually smiled. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm an idiot who's in way over her head. That too. He kissed me again, softer this time. All right, find another way. I'll give you 2 weeks. If you can find an alternative treatment that doesn't require Marcus's cells, I'll let him go. You will? I'm a monster, Ava, but I'm not a liar. His hand cupped my face. 2 weeks. And if you can't find a solution, Marcus stays and you accept that there's no way to win this without casualties. And if I can? Then maybe you can save us both. I didn't know what he meant by that. Didn't have time to ask, because the door to his office burst open and Martha ran in, her face pale. Dr. Crane, it's Finn. He's crashing. Everything else disappeared. I ran. Down the elevator, through the hallways, into Finn's room where alarms were screaming and nurses were scrambling. My brother was seizing, his body convulsing violently, blood pouring from his nose. What happened? I demanded. I don't know, one of the nurses said. He was fine an hour ago, and then he just started seizing. Elias appeared behind me, immediately taking charge. Get me 10 milligrams of Ativan and prep for intubation. Ava, I need you to... I know. I was already moving, checking Finn's vitals, trying to figure out what went wrong. But I already knew. His body was rejecting the treatment. The cells from Marcus weren't enough anymore. Finn needed more, needed something stronger. Needed me. Take my blood, I said. All of it if you have to. Just save him. Elias looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Ava, if I take too much, you'll die. Then take what you can, please. He nodded. Within minutes, I was on a gurney next to Finn, a tube running from my arm to his, my blood flowing into my brother, keeping him alive. I watched the color slowly return to his face, watched his seizures stop, watched him stabilize, and I felt myself getting weaker. Elias was there, monitoring my vitals, his face grim. That's enough. I'm stopping the transfusion. No, he needs more. Ava, I said no. But he disconnected the tube anyway, applying pressure to my arm as I tried to fight him. You've given enough, he said quietly. Any more and you'll go into hypovolemic shock. I wanted to argue, wanted to keep fighting, but the room was starting to spin and I couldn't remember why this was so important. Everything went dark. When I woke, I was in my apartment. Elias sat in the chair beside my bed, holding my hand. Finn? I rasped. Stable, thanks to you. You saved him. For how long? He didn't answer. I closed my eyes, feeling tears slip down my temples. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep choosing between Marcus and Finn, between right and wrong, between you and my conscience. I know. So what do I do? You find that third option, that impossible solution. He brought my hand to his lips. And I'll help you, because despite everything, despite what I am and what I've done, I don't want to lose you, either of you. It was the closest thing to a declaration of love I'd ever get from him, and somehow it was enough. For now. 2 weeks, I said. 2 weeks, he agreed. I had 14 days to find a miracle. 14 days to save Marcus without killing Finn. 14 days to figure out if redemption was even possible for people like us. The clock was ticking, and somewhere in this hospital, in the basement level I'd only glimpsed at, I knew there were answers, secrets Elias hadn't told me yet, pieces of this nightmare that I hadn't uncovered. I was going to find them. I was going to find a way to save everyone, or die trying, because that's what you do when you love someone. And I loved Finn. And God help me, I was starting to love Elias too, even though he was a monster, even though I was becoming one. Love doesn't ask for permission. It just destroys you and calls it salvation.
The full story isn't over. Subscribe and turn on notifications.